Just giving everybody a chance to get on.
Sure.
Well, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Sharon Bonney. I'm the CEO for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar today in preparation for our Capitol Hill Day, which is taking place on April 8th. So I'm going to also introduce to you that we have Jody Angelone, who's our president-elect, as well as Dr. Don Finn, who is our president, with us today. And we also have from Penn Hill Group, we have Audrey Pittman and Michelle McLaughlin. They're with us today, and they're going to be reviewing some really important information for us. So hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for making time for this. First of all, I just want to mention, I think everybody's aware that the Coalition on Adult Basic Education represents a system of 65,000 adult educators across the country, working with 1.5 million learners. And as you all are probably aware, we work with more than 2,000 local programs. So this entire system of adult education is really contingent upon funding that comes from the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And so we're really, really grateful for Aztec Software, who is the sponsor of not only today's webinar, but our advocacy efforts, because without them and without their sponsorship, it would be really hard to be that national voice for adult education that the field has really come to know us as. As we prepare for our Capitol Hill Day, we just want to mention that we anticipate this will be our largest Capitol Hill Day event yet. We're really, really excited about it. We anticipate hundreds will come from Baltimore, Maryland. They bus down to Washington, D.C. on April 8th. And so we just want to encourage you all to make sure that you post to social media and tag COABE as we move forward with this event. We really want to be able to bring it outside of just a group of people that are there to all of those in the field, so they can join with us sort of virtually through social media. We will have some wonderful logistics to share with you on the next webinar, which is taking place on the 23rd. And I really can't stress to you enough how important that webinar will be, because the size of the group that we have is going to be so large, it's really going to be hard to meet in person at the conference. So please plan to join us on the 23rd. We're going to have more details to share with you at that point. Jody, do you have anything you'd like to say? Jody's our president-elect and also our public policy chair. So I didn't know if you wanted to share any special words.
I just wanted to say thank you for being here, and we're really excited about this Capitol Hill Day. As Sharon said, will be our largest to date and the largest convening of adult educators on the Hill. So again, thank you for joining, and we'll see you at conference, and look forward to addressing any questions that you have and helping to educate you with the policy issues and help you with advocating for adult education. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Okay, so with this, I'm going to turn this over to Penn Hill Group. Just can't say enough about this firm. They have been wonderful to work with, extremely responsive and very knowledgeable. So I know we're in good hands with them. So I'm going to hand off to Audrey and Michelle.
Well, thank you, Sharon. And we look forward to having all of you join us on Capitol Hill on April 8th. And we thought we'd take some time to walk you through some helpful tips when you're scheduling your meetings on the Hill. So we recommend scheduling your Hill meetings about 1 month before the Capitol Hill Day. So for this Capitol Hill Day on April 8th, we think now or anytime in the next few days is a good time to start reaching out to your legislators. Using the Ignite software that COABE provides, we recommend that you find the 2 senators in your state and your member of Congress that represents your district, and reaching out to them to ask them for a meeting. So we want to make sure that you reach out to the education staffer rather than the scheduler. And again, Ignite should help you to find these email addresses. The email text for you to send to the legislator will be pre-populated for you. But of course, if you would like to add any state or local information or any other way you want to make the email your own, that is of course welcome. And if you don't get a response from the office in about a week, we recommend that you send a follow-up request. And again, we'll have that email text populated and ready for you to do so.
Sharon, did you want us to take questions along the way or wait till the end?
I think waiting until the end would be great, if you're okay with that. Yeah.
I just wanted to acknowledge that we saw something in the chat box.
Okay.
Yes.
So a few more tips on what to expect for your meetings on Capitol Hill. So in these meetings, you will be meeting with legislative staff rather than members of Congress. And we want to remind you that this is really a high priority, productive meeting. Staff are really the ones that get into the weeds on issues such as adult education, and they're responsible for making many difficult funding decisions. So it's really important that we have these meetings. And just a few other things to keep in mind. Don't be surprised if your meeting is held in a hallway or a tight space, especially in the House of Representatives. They're always running out of space there, but that doesn't mean anything other than that space is tight. You may have a limited amount of time for your meeting. Typically meetings are no more than 30 minutes, but it can also be less than that. So ensure that your talking points are concise and you're really able and ready to come out with the ask at the beginning of the meeting. During the meeting, sometimes staff will look at their phones. Don't be distracted or offended by this. Different offices have different policies with regards to responding to emails and requests, so they're probably just trying to make sure that everything gets done. It's nothing personal. And lastly, we want to flag that it's important to be nimble in the conversation. So if the staffer has a specific issue they'd like to discuss, you can feel free to follow their lead while making sure that you get your talking points and the ask addressed early on in the meeting. I think we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So some more tips for you all. Remember that you are the expert here. Members and staff want to learn from you as you are actually in the field working with the adult students and educating them each and every day. So be sure to tell them about all the great work that you are doing in your local program, and feel free to share specific stories or statistics as you see fit. Staff really enjoy these meetings and learning from you on these issues. Secondly, we think it's really important to localize your story. So staff are primarily focused on serving the needs of their constituents. So this is you and your students. So we want to make sure you come prepared with stories and statistics that are relevant to either the staffer, state, or district. We think this goes a long way when making funding requests. And then lastly, it's important to personalize your story. So putting faces and names to the adult students that you work with can make your ask more real and relatable and understandable to staffers. As we mentioned, staff are responsible for making many difficult funding decisions. So the more they can connect with the story that you're telling, the better off that we will be in making this funding ask. So we recommend coming prepared with a few success stories that you can share with the staff in this meeting. And then just a few more pro tips for your Hill visits. So we want to make sure that you're attentive and taking notes during your meetings. If you have numerous meetings throughout the day, oftentimes these conversations can blur together. So we recommend taking notes so that you're confident on which conversations happened in which offices. If the staffer asks you a question, which may or may not happen, depending on the personality of the staffer, and you don't know the answer, that's perfectly okay. You can just tell the staffer that you will look into that and make sure to follow up with them after the meeting. We also think this is a good way to get back in touch with the staffer after the meeting, as long as you make sure to do that. We also recommend inviting the staff and the member of Congress to come out for a site visit and really see the work that you're doing firsthand. We think this is a great opportunity to connect with the office again and show them what you're all about. We think you should leave a business card as well. This way, if the staff has any question, it's really easy for them to get back in touch with you and you guys can stay connected that way. And lastly, it's very important to send a follow-up email thanking the staff for taking the time to meet with you, and then answering any other questions or follow-up items that you guys had discussed during the meeting. This is a small step that can really go a long way in developing a good relationship with the Hill office. So here we have a chart that outlines the upcoming weeks where legislators will be back in the home states or districts. So again, recess weeks are an opportunity to request meeting with your legislators at home, and also it's a great time to offer for them to come out for a site visit because they're already back in the district. So we think two things on that. One, it's really important to get to know the district staff as well. They have the ear of the member of Congress, And it's good to form a relationship with that office if you ever want to have them come out to your program or hold press briefings or anything like that. And some of you may have noticed here that April 8th is during a recess week. So we just want to highlight again that even though the member of Congress will not be in town for these meetings, these meetings with legislative staff are critical, and they are really important to come in and meet with them, as they're really in charge of making the funding decisions. So there will be plenty of staff in town and available in DC to meet with you. We just wanted to make sure we flag this for you, and if you have any questions, you can certainly let us know, and we'll be happy to answer those. So I'll turn it over to Michelle to walk us through kind of the state of play and the current funding levels.
Thanks, Audrey. Well, we're really excited to meet a lot of you. Maybe some of you we met in September when you all were in town, but we're really excited to see you in April. This is a great opportunity, since you are in Baltimore, to head to the Hill and really just show the strength of your community. And we're just grateful to be able to support you in that. Just to give everybody a sense of where things are, if you're following along on the slides, you can see the Congress finished up the 2020 appropriations process in December, so a little later than sometimes normal. And the great news for adult ed is you received $670.6 million in funding, and that is an increase of $15 million over the previous year. So congratulations to all of you who did make an effort to either talk to your staff or senators or members of Congress, or make calls, sent emails. It really paid off. So congratulations for that. So now that the FY20, so now that the FY20 process has ended, we're now starting FY21. And before we sort of jump into 21, I think it's important to point out that your efforts have really paid off over the years. So if you look at this slide, over the past 5 years, back in 2016, you're receiving about, $582 million in funding. And, last year you were up quite a bit. So I think, it's really important to acknowledge over time that these efforts make a difference. And so we're just excited again to support you in that effort, because we think this is going to be another great year. So the FY2021 process has started. You could go to the next slide. And usually the way that kicks off is the president announces his budget. So if any of you have been following along here in DC, that did come out in February, and we've been trying through all the alerts that Sharon and folks at COAB sent out to keep you apprised of that process. And it is a process. It takes time. It won't resolve itself quickly. In fact, because this is an election year, we anticipate that it'll probably take until after the presidential election to finally resolve. So it's something that's going to require some sustained effort over time. And again, we look forward to supporting you in that. So the first effort will be, as Audrey pointed out, for you all to try to get some meetings with staff who work for either the person who represents you in the House of Representatives or in the Senate. And so that's really that'll be the first thing for you all to start working on as we speak. And we will circle back. We've seen some questions come in through the chat box about how to use Ignite and that sort of thing, and we're going to circle back to that at the end. So don't fret if you're not sure exactly what to do with Ignite. So that process is now, and part of why you go in to talk to staff is because they're drafting their bill. So the House of Representatives will have its bill, and the Labor HHS Committee, and the Senate will also have its bill, and it happens to be named the same committee, Labor HHS. And so we want to meet with both sides because they draft their bills independently, and we want to make sure that both houses of Congress understand how important it is to fund adult ed, because we know that there's a lot of need in the community that is not being met right now. And so this is our opportunity to make that case. Our best guess is that the Senate will the House will draft its bill, mark it up and get it to the floor. The House, for those of you who pay attention to these kinds of things, is the sort of body that who's ever in the majority really dominates and runs the body. So right now it's Democrats. So this bill will be a partisan bill. So the Democrats have complete authority to mark it up and get it through committee and then get it through the floor. On the Senate side, it's a little different. You have the Republicans in charge. And you also, because of the filibuster, you have the way things are set up is you can't just have majority pushing something through. You really do need Democrats to help you get to the number 60, which is what you normally need for different bills. So in the Senate, we think that they will draft a bill. Whether it goes to markup or whether it goes to floor is too early to say. But our goal and your goal with these meetings is to ask for the highest possible number on both sides. So for both the Senate bill and the House bill, we want to see funding going up. Next slide. While that effort is going on, that's so important, and Audrey described how important it is for them to hear from you and your stories. It's the combination really, I'm sure you know, is like the data plus that personal angle is what people want to hear about. So while you're doing your effort, there's also something that happens within both the Senate and the House called the Dear Colleague letter. And so in this case, the colleague is literally either the other member of Congress in the House or the other senator. So what happens is someone leads this process. In the House, it will be Congressman Grijalva and Congressman Yarmouth. And in the Senate, it will be Senator Reid and most likely Blumenthal. And so what happens is they write to their colleagues. They write a letter to the Appropriations Committee, the people who run the Appropriations Committee, Labor Age, and they have their fellow senators or members of Congress also sign on to the letter to say adult ed matters and we would like to see funding at this level. So there are two separate letters, one that works through the House, one that works through the Senate. The language tends to be very similar between the two letters, but sometimes there's some small differences. So this process, we've been working with COABE diligently to keep this process moving. This is the time of year where all the groups are making sure that their Dear Colleague letters are getting finalized and then circulated and getting as many members of Congress to sign on as possible. So on the House side, they made a strong effort to get a Republican co-sponsor, and unfortunately we're not able to. And this often happens, particularly when you have what will probably be a partisan process. So the Dear Colleague in the House for sure is going to be a Democrat-only letter, and the number that was agreed on by the community, so COABE and other groups that have weighed in with the different members of Congress and their staff, is 692 million. So that letter is being finalized as we speak. And so one of the things we want to do, as we'll follow up with you all on this, is in addition to scheduling your meetings, we also want to make sure that if you have a good relationship with your member of Congress or their staff, if you want to suggest to them that they sign on to this Dear Colleague letter, because the more people that sign, the better. So on the House side, it's a Democrat-only letter. On the Senate side, we're still working to get a Republican because, again, as we explained earlier, bipartisan support, particularly in the Senate, is very valuable. So we probably won't know until later this week whether there's a Republican co-lead on the Senate side. Then the process is the same. Just as you would reach out to the staff for a member of Congress on the House side saying, we please ask that you would consider signing this letter, it would be the same thing on the Senate side. And so these letters, when they're finally finalized, go to the appropriators, and it's a way for members of Congress to signal their priorities. They have other ways that they do it as well, but this is sort of a public way of saying, adult ed is so important to us that I'm going to sign on to this letter. Next slide. Some of this, it looks like we covered. Again, we thought it was possible that the Dear Colleague would be ready today. However, we're still waiting again to see some finalized changes on the House side and then to see if we get a Republican co-sponsor on the Senate side. So we'll be following up with you so that you can also send that request to have your member of Congress or senator sign on to the letter. Again, as we'll get to at the end of, when we get to the end of my part, when we talk questions, we'll talk more about how to actually logistically do that using the software that COABE has. It's also just worth flagging. Sometimes if, say, a person sits on an appropriations committee, they may say, well, I don't really sign letters. And so then that is something that happens sometimes. And so that just for you to be aware that some of the folks you reach out to, that could come up. And within the PowerPoint, we do have links to who's on which committees. So that's sort of the state of play now. We also plan on our March 23rd webinar to do a really detailed walkthrough of how you would actually run your individual meeting. And some of you we recognize might be pros at this. Some of you may have come to the Hill many times. Others might just want a little more explanation of what we do, what to expect. I think Audrey did a great job of laying out, particularly on the House side. You might not get as much time as you think you really deserve or need, or you might be standing and it might feel a little awkward. But again, that's really on the House side, staffers tend to cover a lot more issues than on the Senate side. So that's really just a reflection of that and not how important adult ed is. Also, as she said, it's just worth saying again, people here are addicted to their phones, as is everyone, but I think it's even worse in DC. And so there's a lot of looking down and you think, is this person listening to me? And they are, they should be looking up, but they may not. And so just to be prepared for that. But basically when you go in, no matter how much time you get, you want to just make sure they know who you are, like what your role is in adult ed, that you're a member of COABE, one quick sentence about what COABE is, and then you want to talk about what you can either do the ask first, or you can talk about why the need is there, whichever feels more comfortable. And we laid this out for you in what is a logical sequence, but if for some reason you'd rather talk about the need and how important it is and then ask for the money, for some people that's more comfortable, you can do it that way too. But it's important to make sure you get to the ask so that they know what they can do to support you after this meeting. So this is just a short preview of what a meeting will look like, and we will spend a lot more time on this on the March 23rd webinar. We continue this part, right? Oh, Sharon, I'm sorry, this is you.
Yeah, so hi everybody. It's thank you first of all, Audrey and Michelle, for all that information. That was really helpful. So what we're asking everybody to do is to go out and make your appointments and schedule them with the scheduler, and then to put them into one shared location that we have. So we have some resources that include a number of hot links, and directly following this webinar, you're going to receive an email from our staff, Mariah, who's our support staff, who's going to send out a number of different links. And one of them is where you'll be able to go into Ignite, and I can actually pull this up and show you what it looks like to go in and send an email to your staffer asking for a meeting. Then once they get back to you, you're going to take that information and you're going to put it into the scheduler so that we can see how many meetings have been set up. There's a few reasons for this. First of all, with us busing you for free down to DC, and you're really part of this bigger group of individuals who are coming to really raise the visibility of adult education, we need to know how many meetings each person has. So we will have a giant schedule that shows all of the meetings that everybody has. And at the end of the day, we're going to be able to, have one big list that shows which states have been hit on, which states are still open. Last I checked, we had representation from all but 6 states. So I went back to those 6 states and asked people who were attending the conference if we could just get one person from each of those states to come with us. So we have all 50 states represented and everybody talking with their legislators in all 50 states. But the idea is that we'll have one big list, and then also, I believe so far we've had 497 face-to-face visits with legislators up to this point. So this is the 7th of the Hill Days that we've conducted. And so we'll add those numbers together, and with this big contingency, we really should probably be close to, I'm going to guess, about 800 people when it's all, or about 800 visits when it's all said and done, when we add to what we already have done in the past. So that's really why it's important. One is so that we can see what meetings have been scheduled, and then two, so we can put it all together and we can continue to report out to the membership on the meetings that have been scheduled to date. So you'll be asked to schedule your meeting and then put it into our scheduler so that we can then keep track of that. Hopefully that makes sense. And then we're also going to ask that you join us for office hour style debrief in either the House or the Senate, and that we're going to share more details out on our March 23rd webinar. And it's really important that you do this, because what we want to do is be able to see, okay, what worked, what didn't work, were there important discussions that happened in certain states that we can follow up on. So a really important step here is this COAB on the Hill debrief. So the next steps would be after you contact your legislator and get that appointment scheduled, putting it in the scheduler, and then planning to join us for the next webinar, which is on the 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. So now I'd just like to stop this here and turn this over to Audrey and Michelle, who I believe want to take the questions that are posted in the chat and the Q&A.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're just looking here to see if there's any questions. Do you want me to read them out loud, or you guys want to just, how would you like to take them?
I think because people are probably not all at their computers, we should definitely read them out loud.
Okay.
So we can start back to the very first one we received, which is, how do we get to the Ignite software? So Sharon, I'm going to turn that back to you.
Right. So we're going to send an email out after this. It has all of the steps listed, but it's really you click, I can stop sharing and I'll go get the link and post it in here. But I just want to say that there will be a follow-up email that includes not only just this archived webinar, but also the PowerPoint and the links for how to get to the software to set up your appointment.
Great. The next question is, how many students are signed up so far? I'm running the ambassador training that will have at least a handful who will do CHD2. Bringing a student to the Capitol is the best way to advocate for adult ed. So do we know, Karen?
I do, yep. Hi, Laura. So to my knowledge, we have 67 that are signed up so far, but I can pull you some specific numbers after this call as well.
Great. Then we have, in addition to a business card, is it all right to leave the member a one-pager outlining talking points from the meeting, local information, statistics, etc.? Yes, it's more than okay, and in fact, we will have that for you. We've been working with COAB and updating the fact sheets with the most recent information and data available. So yes, that information, it's appropriate to leave that behind. Our next question is, I think this was probably in response to something that either myself or Audrey said, but yes, we agree. It's all about building relationships. The person who's commenting was saying that staffers are the ones to build a relationship with. They're the ones who counsel the rep and also can bring you access to them. Yes, we totally agree. Then I think someone was just saying hello from Missouri. Hello, Missouri. And somebody from Nigeria. Oh, hello. Somebody was also expressing they were happy that we were not cut this year, because as we acknowledged earlier in the president's budget, we were level funded. So we agree. We think that's a significant achievement. Following question, what will the time frame be that we will be on the Hill so that we can schedule times with staffers? Sharon, I'm going to turn that back to you.
Great. So what we hope to do is right after general session, which will be on Wednesday morning, right after that we'll get on the buses and head out to DC. And then that we'll head back starting at 4 o'clock. So people get back on the bus at 4. So taking all that into account, we're thinking that appointments should not be before 11 o'clock and should not be after 3 o'clock. Audrey and Michelle, let me know if you feel differently, but we're thinking people get on the bus right after general session, we'll head down together, and then head back after 4 o'clock.
Sharon, can you remind me when general session ends?
So we're hoping it'll end at 10, but it will most likely be more like 10:15.
Okay. I think it will take more than 45 minutes to get to DC. So perhaps we should say 12.
Okay.
The earliest maybe 11:30, because sometimes, I mean, hopefully by that time, rush hour is over, but we unfortunately live in one of those communities where there's a very small window of no rush hour, which tends to be around that time. So it's sort of like 11 to 3-ish.
Okay. So you're saying 11:30 really to 3 o'clock is when people should make their
Yeah,
appointments.
I think that just to be safe to build in a little, if the general session runs to 10:15 and then you have to get people on the bus, you want to give yourself at least an hour to get to DC. And there always is some time, going through check-in in the office building, so.
Right, okay. I wondered if you would like for me to show everybody how to get into Ignite and schedule their meetings.
Absolutely. Let me see if there's anything else we can just answer quickly here. People are excited that so many students are coming. Somebody asked about the time, which we just answered, and that's Sharon. And then was there something over here? There's a question here, Sharon. We have 2 people going to Capitol Hill from our local literacy program. Should we schedule this meeting together?
I think so, yeah.
Meaning bring the student to, I think that means bringing the student to the meeting, right? Yeah, that's terrific. How can I contact my legislator? We'll get to that. We just talked about the schedule. And then, yeah, time for again. Okay, so Sharon, I think you're going to walk us through using Ignite, correct?
Sure am. Yes, I'll take a minute here. Okay, so the link I sent everybody, it will take you right to this page. Now, my information is saved because I've made appointments and whatnot through this before, but you'll have to, if you're going through for the first time, you'll have to enter your information here and then hit submit. When you come here to submit, you can see that this subject area can be changed, and as can this message area as well. So you can, let's say you end up having, one that gets right back to you and says, yes, I can meet with you at 11:30. Then you're going to want to change it so that this does no longer says 11 to 4. And actually, I'll go in and edit this just going forward. So now, based on this discussion we just had with Michelle and Audrey, but all that to say, this is editable. So you can come in here and you can change this. You can even change your closing. Now, for myself, I'm hoping to get a meeting with President Trump and Vice President Pence. You may not want that, so you can click off on that. But then once you're done with this, you're going to hit submit. And it's that simple. It goes through, and then you'll hear back from somebody. Like, for instance, I used this the other day, and I heard back within an hour from Representative John Katko's office. So once you hear back from them, this is where you come in here, you enter your information. Here again, because I've used this before, it pre-populates for me. And then please select the officials whose office you intend to visit today. So let's say I've set these up. I proceed, and then it asks me my appointment date and time. I enter that information and hit proceed, and then it saves it. That information is then there. When you come to get your packets for Capitol Hill Day, we will be able to print off a sheet that shows what your appointments are, with whom and when. So just really, really helpful for us to have a giant schedule, then also for each individual to have a schedule as well. So we really encourage you to go in here and use this.
And Sharon, since you mentioned that because you've used this before, it's sort of pre-populated, but if somebody were brand new, it would be reading the address to then populate who to send it to. Is that how it works?
Right, yes, yes. That's exactly how it works.
And do you guys recommend that people use their home address or the work address?
We recommend that they use the home address.
Okay.
Yeah. And then beyond that, we have a number of resources, online resources, as well as hard copies that we're going to have available. So we're going to have this giant Capitol display at the conference. We're going to have office hours there where you can meet not only with our friends here at Penn Hill Group, but also folks from our Public Policy Committee. We're going to have materials, hard copy materials for there, but then also we're going to send you information online as well, just so that, we try to keep you as up to date as possible. So Audrey and Michelle, I see that you guys are pointing at something. Is there anything else you wanted to add to this?
Two more questions have come in, and Sharon, it sounds like we're telling people the window to make appointments is 11:30 to 3, not 3:30, correct?
Right, correct.
Okay. So that answers Thomas's question. Then it says, would you like to track meetings happening with local representatives as well? The Minnesota, I believe, ABE Day at the Capitol is March 9th.
So that's a great question. For these appointments on April 8th, no, we don't want to track them. But what we will be doing, we'll be talking about this at the national conference, is that we do have capacity to help state associations and state directors at the state level and to do state level campaigns. And that's where that'd be really helpful to know that sort of information. But for this specific, Capitol Hill Day on the 8th, no, we would not want to track that. We just want to track those appointments that you're making for the 8th.
Okay. And then Bridget, just to get back to your question about, I think you're the person bringing students with you. I think one request is fine. I mean, basically the staffer just wants to know, who will be there. So yeah, you could put both your names on one request. And then Eric asked, should we make appointments alone or do we do this in pairs? I don't know what your previous practice is, Sharon. Do you encourage people to go on their own or do you like people to go together?
And we have been really open on this. We've had times where we've had groups of 4 or 5 that have gone into meetings, and also where it's been separate and folks have gone on their own. It both works for us. In fact, we kind of feel like it's like legislative staff, if they see more people coming at different appointments, maybe it has a bigger impact. But we're very open to that. So I guess the response would be either way from my standpoint, unless you feel differently, Audrey and Michelle.
I mean, I think on the Senate side, that works probably a little better, right? Because there's only 2 senators that you would want to try to meet with. On the House side, it can just be trickier because depending on where your program is located, there might not, depending on who's coming to this event, you may not have somebody who's going to the exact same office. But I think, on the Senate side, that could make more sense if you do want to coordinate some.
Right. I think our message out though is don't wait on anybody else. Just make your own appointments. Get in, make your appointments. If we see a ton of overlap or issues, COABE is here and happy to help. But my encouragement today would be everybody that's on this webinar, please use the link, go in and make your appointments. And yes, Laura, as you noticed, it should be changed from 11:30 to 3. So when you go in, just that editable email there, go in and change the time. So it says 11:30 to 3. We'll change it on our end too, but it'll be after this webinar.
We also got another question on scheduling. How do we connect with the different legislators? Let's see. That is how we connect with the different legislators. We do not independently reach out, right? You want people to use Ignite, correct?
Correct. And if you have any issues at all or you don't hear a response back, certainly reach back out to us here at COABE. We have a whole list of the schedulers and the staffers and that sort of thing, and we can help. So please, if you need, just let us know, reach back out to us.
We also have a question on where the buses will let off. I don't know if you know that at this point, Sharon, do you?
So we will have the buses pulling up at the front of the hotel, but we're going to have more details on the webinar on the 23rd. But
I don't know if they meant when you get to DC. That may have been.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't have the answer to that, but we will by the 23rd. So be sure to join us on the 23rd.
Any other questions? I don't think we see any other questions that have popped up. There's that one. Okay. If someone from our state is planning on attending CHG, so that maybe we can coordinate a visit if possible and desired. It sounds like, Sharon, you're saying great, but just don't let that delay you. You want to make sure these meetings get scheduled.
Yes. Yes, I can't stress that enough, to get in and start making those appointments and don't wait, because otherwise, and we look at it like this is an investment to bus people down there and take away from the national conference to do this. So we'd like everybody to have at least 2 appointments, at least.
Mm-hmm. And, a good rule of thumb too is, depending on, most people would only have one appointment, I would think, on the House side, but potentially two on the Senate. So when you're scheduling, right, because you probably would do where you're from, where you live, so that's your House district, and then the two senators. So just to make things, this may be just common sense, but I mean, I would think you'd want to try to make your Senate visits, if you manage to get in with both senators, have them both on the same part of the day, and the House one on the House side, so that you're not running back and forth between, because the House buildings are on one side of the Capitol and the Senate buildings are on the other side. So if you cluster your Senate meetings, that will just make it easier on you and your feet.
Right, and I, as someone who has attended many of these Capitol Hill days, I can't stress enough, ladies, about wearing flats. It's hard. It's really hard to do, but it will help a lot if you can wear flats, because you walk quite a bit between the House and Senate. Yeah.
And most, certainly if there are accessibility concerns, we can always look up that kind of information about getting into buildings, or every building does have an elevator. So I think we got another question.
Great.
We have another question. My representatives for education should I request to visit a representative from another Oregon district? Same for my Oregon senator. Well, I mean, I suppose if your office was located in a different district, I suppose. But I think, right, Sharon, the message is to really focus on the districts that they're from. Is that the message that you want to concentrate on?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that, even if your representative is generally very pro-education, because the Dear Colleague, there's a possibility that they don't know about the Dear Colleague letter, and so then you can just secure. Sometimes, representatives, it's just a good reminder, because they do get asked to sign a lot of letters. And so if they hear from you personally, it's a good reminder, oh yes, I want to make sure I show my support for adult ed. Even if they're always just generally supportive of a lot of things, you just want to make sure that they don't miss that opportunity.
Sharon, can I add a comment to that one?
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's really hard to get into another representative if you're not from their district, if they don't see you as one of their constituents. But it might be a great idea, if you have that interest, to take and drop off a folder to those other individuals. So even if you don't have an opportunity to meet with them, just because we're going to be there, there's an opportunity maybe to drop by their office and leave a folder and a card, so that they have something there from adult ed from the visit that day.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Jody. It is true. What we call sort of beginning in March into April, some extending a little bit into May, is considered fly-in season in DC. So all groups are doing what we're doing. So they're bringing people into town to make their case for their programs. So that can lead to people being a little more restrictive, like I'm only going to, on the House side, I'm only going to meet with people from our district, because they have a lot of requests coming in.
Right, and I just want to stress, as we're closing out this session, that there's sort of like a three-pronged approach that COAB has taken to advocacy, and it's really made a difference for the field. So the first is using this Ignite software that you just saw. We've had multiple campaigns running from since 2017. We've had over 120,000 connections with legislators. That really made a difference. I mean, that groundswell movement of people taking action using their email, really made a difference and connected us with a lot of legislators. So that was one. Obviously, these Capitol Hill Day visits, where we bring in, hundreds of people to the Hill, has really been an important piece of this. And the face-to-face visits can't be underscored enough, because when we talk with legislators, that's what they say. We need to see you in person to know that it's important. So thank you for making time to do this with us, because all of those meetings really do make a difference. And then third is our ambassador program, and that's Laura Porfirio, who's on this with us, as well as Regina Suit. They put a lot of time and love and effort into helping to train up adult learners so that they know how to talk with legislators and funders about the value of adult education. And nobody can tell the story like that adult learner who's gone through the program and really benefited and changed the trajectory of their life. So I would just want to encourage you all, if you're not bringing an adult learner to the conference, maybe you should consider it, because we will have an adult learner strand, we'll have our ambassador program, and most of all, we're going to have this Capitol Hill Day, you know, at the end of it all on the 8th. So just wanted to put that out there. We will be also, while we're on the Hill, encouraging the field to be sending emails to their legislators at the same time. And we did this the last go around, and really it was very successful. So just want to mention, we're all in it together. We're all really working hard together to move the needle for funding. We saved off $200 million of funding cuts. We added $75 million to the pot for the field. And that was really just a group effort of everybody working hard. So thank you to everybody that got on this call. Thank you to everybody who's making time on the 8th to join us for this. And if you know of anybody else you think would like to join us that's going to the conference, I just want to encourage you to encourage them to make time for this on April 8th. So Audrey, Michelle, Don, or Jody, do you have any closing comments before we close off for the day?
There's one more comment, it looks like. Let's see. Will we be able to see what appointments are made in our state, especially for the Senate? Our state is large, and it is likely that many appointments might be made with our senators, and maybe we don't want to overwhelm if others are trying to meet.
So I'm trying to think of the best way to do this, Chris. I think that it's really important for people to put in what their appointments are, and that way we're going to have that master calendar, and that way we can look together and see. We will definitely have staff pouring over this to see who's making appointments and who's not, and that sort of thing. I don't know any better way to do it than ask people to make the appointments first and see how legislators come back and what they offer. So unless Audrey or Michelle has a different way, I think that's what I'd recommend, is get in there and make your appointments. We'll see what legislators come back with and what they offer us for appointments. But we will be looking closely at this. We'll be sending it to Penn Hill Group as well to keep a close eye as well. Yeah,
and my guess is staff will notice things coming in. And if they see from the same state, they might even suggest themselves consolidating a meeting. But yeah, we're here to help. You know, the COAB is here to help, but the staff themselves may even just take the initiative if multiple invitations come in.
Okay, great. So in closing, just want to remind you that go in, make those appointments. We will send out, as a follow-up to this, we're going to send out the PowerPoint, the archived recording here, as well as the link to go in and make your appointment, and then the link to start, once you get those appointments, start putting them into the scheduler so we know and we can have a master calendar of all those appointments. Yeah. And then join us on the 23rd.
Yes, thank you for the plug. And so on the 23rd, we will talk more specifically about how your individual meetings will go, and we'll take any questions, and just really want to get you feeling excited about this opportunity. It is a great opportunity. We do feel, we've talked a lot with your representatives at COAB about how adult ed is a part of this career technical ed workforce conversation. And so this is a great opportunity right now to emphasize that with Hill staff. So excited to see you all.
Great, thank you. And so Dr. Don, who's our board president, do you want to say any last words?
I do. I just want to thank everybody for your interest in our Capitol Hill Day. This is going to be a tremendous, tremendous event, and we are really going to storm the Hill and like we have never done before, in order to let those legislators, and particularly those key staff members, know who we are and what we do. You know, at COAB, our mission is to inspire educators so that adults succeed and communities thrive. And, you know, being advocates of our profession and being advocates for our students is what it's all about. And so we are so excited to be in such close proximity to Washington, D.C. to be able to pull this off. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, a lot of planning that's still happening. So we really do appreciate your interest. We also appreciate your patience. So definitely get in there, use the Ignite software, go ahead and make those appointments, and we're going to show them the best of adult education. I really want to also just shout out and a big thank you to our friends at Penn Hill. They have been a wonderful, wonderful partner for us. They came on board with us back in the fall and hit the ground running. We really appreciate their professionalism. We appreciate their counsel and their advice. So thank you to you all, and looking forward to seeing you all in Baltimore in just a very short time.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, bye now. We'll see you on the 23rd.